Hello, a lot of students struggle on how to find the correct answers to the teacher grade assignments. So I just wanted to go over a few tips on how you can find the answers to the teacher grade assignments. And so I've opened up for an example the Unit 11 teacher grade assignments for American History B. This is in semester 2, and this is the Unit 11. So I've been through all of Unit 11, and hopefully I've done all of those lessons and all of the worksheets and assignments that go with it. And now I'm to the teacher graded assignment portion, and I open up the teacher grade assignment, and here's the questions that I'm asked. And so number 1 says, what action by Congress allowed President Johnson to expand the war in Vietnam? Why? And what were the results? So here I have 3 different questions in number 1 that I'm going to need to make sure that I answer. I need to know what action, I need to know why, and then I need to know what the results were. So I'm going to try to answer those 3 questions. Maybe you've been through Unit 11 and you know exactly where to turn your book to find that, or maybe you just don't remember where you read that in Unit 11. So what do I do if I'm like, I have no idea where to go and look? The best place to start is by taking a look in your book. And so how do I know where to go in my book? And there's a couple different ways that I can search in my book for this. So I'm going to open up the book as well as the unit and show you a couple tips. Alright, so I do have my online book open, but no matter if you're using the online or if you're using your hardback book, you can always start by looking in the index or the table of contents for the topic that you're looking for. And there's also a search window in the online book that you can use. So let's take a look at that now. So our first question, we know it was about the war on Vietnam. We may not remember where in the book we were reading about Vietnam. And so if you take a look at your online book, over here in the corner, you will see this menu that you can actually open up. And then just below, I'm going to drag this down a little. You've got your table of contents. So, and you also have your index. You can look in both of those for let's see if I can make that a little bit bigger there. All right, so we've got our table of contents, and maybe you're looking through here and you just can't really find exactly what you need. And maybe you will, but you can always look in the table of contents and see exactly what the topics are. Okay, so here we've got Pearl Harbor, and then you can also look in the index, and maybe in the index you can look for, let's read what our first question was again. What action by Congress allowed President Johnson to expand the war in Vietnam? So maybe in our index we want to look for Vietnam. So we would obviously go to the V's. And I can see Vietnam in several different places. I see the Vietnam conflict on 212 through 217, so maybe somewhere in there. So you could turn to those pages and see. So we could start by going to page 212 and seeing what does it talk about the Vietnam conflict there. And it didn't actually go to the page, so let's try that again. So 212. All right, and so here we can see we're talking about the war in Southeast Asia. You can read there. And actually here I see President Johnson. And so this is a good place to start reading and see if this answers our question. Again, we're looking for what action by Congress allowed President Johnson to expand the war in Vietnam. And one other thing I want to point out, maybe your table of contents or index doesn't get you to where you want to go. You can always go over here. And just under that, you'll see this search bar. You can click on search, and then I can type in anything that I want to. So I can type in Vietnam, and I can hit go, and it's going to give me a list of these different things. I can actually read a little snip here to see where I want to be, because when it starts in 46, this is talking about Japan, so this is probably not where I want to be. Right now we're talking about the Korean War, but when I get down here, I'm seeing some more information, and so maybe this is where I want to be. This is just a good place to start looking. So and it'll highlight everywhere that you have that word searched. So we can start reading here and see, where does it talk about that? Where does it talk about President Johnson? Okay, and what did he do to expand the war? And the other best place to look is go back into your course and take a look at the lessons, especially if you're reading the book and you just aren't finding exactly where you need to be. This can help point you to where you need to be. So we are in lesson 11. And maybe we want to know, you can look at those lesson names, and that's one thing that may help you. We talked about JFK, crisis, time to act. So look at these, and that may point you to which lesson you need to take a look in. Maybe you did an activity on that, and maybe you were even asked some of those same questions, okay? So take a look at the lessons. You can also take a look at the notes guide. So if you go to Class Home, or over on the side we had the course materials. We could have clicked straight on that, but if we go to our course materials, we should be able to find our notes guides. You can go to the recordings and resources. This is just one place the notes guides are. And I'm going to open up that s'more flyer for Unit 11. That's going to have notes guides. It's going to have study guides. It's going to have some other information. Which is helpful for the online unit assessment as well. So we've got notes guide, study guide, flashcards. So I'm going to open up the notes guides because this guides you through taking notes on each of the lessons, and it gives you a little bit more information about each lesson. So I'm going to go down through here. All right, so in lesson 5, we started talking about LBJ. Identify how the escalating cost of conflict in Vietnam affected LBJ's Great Society programs. So that may be one place that we want to start looking. So let's take a look. And lesson 4. Okay, so let's go back to lesson 5. Let's see what pages we read in the textbook for that. So in order to do that, I'm going back to the class. I'm going to go to Unit 11. I'm going to go to lesson 5, and it was called the Great Society, and that may not necessarily clue me in to what we learned about in that unit or in that lesson, and so that's why I tell you to use the notes guides to look at those objectives and see exactly what you are learning. And so I can go to lesson resources, and I can open up the student guide on this, and the student guide is going to tell me what pages we were on in the textbook. All right, so these were page 199 to 201 and 202 to 204. I can also take a look at some of the questions I answered, and some of those questions sometimes are the same as what were asked in that teacher graded portion. So I know I'm talking about Johnson and the war on Vietnam, so I know I'm exactly in the right place here, so I can go to those pages in the book and see if I can find the answer. All right, and as I keep reading, I'm going to read about President Johnson and going to war. We read about an American ship was on a secret mission in the Gulf of Tonkin, and it wasn't supposed to be there, or torpedo was fired at the ship. 2 days later, there was a second report of torpedoes. It turned out to be untrue. Maybe a sailor saw a flying fish. President Johnson said an American ship had been attacked, and so he got Congress to pass a resolution that let him go to war. It was called the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. So now we've got what action by Congress allowed President Johnson to expand the war. And there we have is that they passed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. So you can keep reading and make sure that you answer the other 2 questions that go with that. Why? How did he get him to pass that? You may want to go back and read the paragraph before. How did he do that? And then what were the results? So read after and tell me what the results were. Hopefully that helps you know how to go search in your book and search in the lessons for these questions. So how did women join the struggle for equal rights? And so you can type equal rights in there in the search bar, or you can go into those lessons and look for which lesson is talking about women joining that struggle, and then make sure you've answered the questions. Okay, hopefully that helps. If you have any other questions or if you get stuck on one, let me know and I can give you some pointers and tips to help you find that.